The warship came out of hyperspace like a wounded animal, trailing plasma fire and desperation. Crossroads 7 Station had seen plenty of damaged vessels limp through its docking rings over the years, but nothing quite like this. The ship was massive, built from dark metal that seemed to swallow light, with wings that curved like blades and weapons arrays that could glass a planet. Even half destroyed, it was terrifying. Station Commander Phillips watched the approach on his monitors and felt his stomach drop. He recognized those markings. Everyone in the galaxy recognized those markings. The Crimson Dragon symbol of the Draconian Empire, painted across hull plating that had survived 1,000 battles. This wasn't some merchant vessel or transport freighter. This was a warship from the most feared military force in known space. The ship docked with a shudder that rang through the entire station. Phillips ordered his security teams to stand ready but not to provoke. You didn't start fights with dragon warriors unless you wanted your station reduced to floating debris. Queen Veratas emerged from the airlock surrounded by 6 guards, each one nearly 8 feet tall with crimson scales that glinted under the harsh station lights. She was taller still, moving with the lethal grace of a predator that had ruled battlefields for 3 centuries. Her armor should have been magnificent, the kind of ceremonial battle gear that legends were made of. Instead, it looked like it was holding itself together through sheer willpower. Cracks spider-webbed across the chest plate. Energy conduits flickered weakly along the arms. With each step she took, there was a faint clicking sound that made her guards wince. Phillips approached carefully, keeping his hands visible. The Queen's reputation preceded her. She had personally conquered 4 to 7 worlds. Her battle strategies were studied in military academies across a dozen species. She was called the Undying, the Iron Talon, the flame that never goes out. And right now, she looked like she was in serious trouble. Your Majesty, Phillips said, bowing slightly. Crossroads 7 welcomes you. How can we assist? Veratas fixed him with eyes that burned like molten gold. My armor requires immediate repair. Summon your best engineers. That's when the real problem started. Phillips put out the call, and within an hour, every qualified engineer on the station had come up with a reason why they absolutely could not work on Royal Dragon armor. The Takarian master craftsman took one look at the ancient metal and said his tools weren't precise enough. The Vexillian technician claimed his expertise was in ship systems, not personal armor. The Hurani metallurgist actually backed away with her hands raised, saying she wouldn't dare touch something so valuable. And they were right to be scared. Dragon-forged armor wasn't like regular equipment. It was created through processes that took years, using materials from the Dragon home world that couldn't be replicated. The metal was harder than anything humans could manufacture, infused with energy matrices that human scientists still didn't fully understand. One mistake during a repair could destroy an irreplaceable artifact. And if you destroyed the armor that was keeping the Queen of the Draconian Empire alive, well, your life expectancy dropped to about however long it took her guards to draw their weapons. Phillips was running out of options when his maintenance supervisor, a woman named Rodriguez, mentioned something. There's a guy down in the lower tunnels who's pretty good with unusual repairs. Fixed that Zentari mining rig last month after everyone said it was scrap. Works on anything, doesn't ask many questions. Phillips was desperate enough to try anything. Send for him. Tyler Hayes was 3 levels down in the guts of the station, lying on his back underneath a coolant manifold, when his radio crackled. He'd been working on the mining equipment for the better part of 6 hours, covered in grease and hydraulic fluid, just trying to get the ancient machinery running one more season. The station didn't have the budget for new equipment, so Tyler spent most of his time convincing old equipment to keep working through creative repairs and sheer stubbornness. He didn't know anything about royal visitors or diplomatic crises. He just knew Rodriguez was offering him a job that paid double his usual rate for some kind of armor repair. He grabbed his tool bag, wiped the worst of the grease off his hands, and headed upstairs. When Tyler walked into the royal suite, he saw the armor mounted on a display stand and let out a low whistle. It was beautiful work, even damaged. The craftsmanship was incredible. He'd never seen metal quite like it, with that strange dark sheen that seemed to shift colors in the light. He walked right up to it, completely ignoring the 7-foot-tall Dragon Queen and her guards, and started his examination. Yeah, I can see the problem, he said, running his fingers along the chest plate crack. That's a stress fracture in the primary support structure. Been building for years, probably. You been hearing a clicking sound when you move. The room went completely silent. One of the guards actually reached for his weapon. Veratas held up a hand to stop him, staring at this grease-stained human who had just walked in and started touching her armor like it was a broken appliance. Tyler pulled out a small scanner from his tool bag, still completely focused on the armor. Metal fatigue. Happens when you don't account for thermal expansion. This stuff is tougher than anything I've worked with before, but physics is physics. Stress builds up, the metal develops weak points, eventually something gives. I can fix it, but I'll need to reinforce the underlying structure. Might take a few days. Viratas found her voice. Dragon smiths have examined this armor for decades. They found nothing wrong. Tyler glanced at her for the first time, then back at the armor. Then they weren't looking in the right places. Or maybe they were afraid to tell you the truth. He shrugged. Either way, this thing's about 2 weeks from catastrophic failure. Mind if I run some full diagnostics? For 300 years, people had approached Queen Viratas with fear, respect, or calculated political maneuvering. This human mechanic was treating her priceless royal armor like a piece of station equipment that needed maintenance, with the same casual confidence he'd probably show fixing a coffee maker. And somehow, that complete lack of fear made her believe he might actually know what he was doing. She nodded slowly. Proceed. Tyler set up his workspace right there in the royal suite, which apparently was a massive breach of protocol that made the guards twitch every time he moved. He didn't notice. He was too busy arranging his tools on a clean drop cloth, humming something under his breath while he worked. The queen watched him with an expression somewhere between fascination and disbelief. He started with a complete structural scan, running his handheld device over every inch of the armor. The guards kept their distance, hands never far from their weapons, but Tyler seemed completely oblivious to the tension in the room. He made little notes on a battered tablet, occasionally muttering to himself about load distribution and stress points. This is incredible craftsmanship, he said after about 20 minutes. Whoever made this really knew their stuff. The energy matrix integration is genius. But there's a fundamental design flaw. He looked up at Viratas. How long have you been wearing this? I mean, continuously. 273 years, she replied. Tyler blinked. Years? Like, actual years? Not hours or days. It has kept me alive. Without it, an old war wound would prove fatal within days. Okay, that explains a lot. Tyler turned back to the armor, shaking his head. See, the thing is, this armor was probably designed for combat use. A few hours at a time, maybe a few days maximum. But you've been wearing it constantly for almost 3 centuries. That's like running a machine at full capacity without ever shutting it down for maintenance. Even the best equipment breaks down eventually. One of the guards, a massive warrior with scars across his scaled snout, growled something in the dragon language. Tyler didn't speak a word of it, but the tone was clear enough. He glanced at the guard, then at Viratas. He's upset, isn't he? Did I say something wrong? Captain Torith believes you are insulting our smiths by suggesting their work is flawed, Viratas said calmly. In our culture, such an insult is answered with blood. Tyler looked genuinely surprised. I'm not insulting anyone. The smiths did amazing work. But nothing lasts forever without proper maintenance. You wouldn't drive a car for 300 years without changing the oil, right? He paused. Do you have cars? That might not be the best analogy. Despite herself, Viratas felt something strange happen. The corner of her mouth twitched. It had been decades since anything had amused her. Explain your reasoning. Tyler grabbed his tablet and pulled up the scan results. Okay, so look at this joint here. Every time you move your arm, this connection point flexes. Thousands of times a day, for 3 centuries. That's billions of stress cycles. The metal is incredibly strong, but it's also rigid. There's no shock absorption, no buffer system. Every impact, every movement, the force goes directly into the structural supports. He zoomed in on the crack. This is where it's failing. The metal has microscopic fractures throughout this entire section. It's like the armor is slowly tearing itself apart from the inside. Another week, maybe 2, and this chest plate is going to shatter completely. And if that happens while you're wearing it during combat, well, I'm guessing that would be bad. Viratas moved closer, studying the scan data. She had seen countless engineering reports over the centuries, usually filled with incomprehensible technical jargon designed to make the speaker sound more intelligent. Tyler's explanation was simple, direct, and made complete sense. More importantly, he was showing her exactly what he saw, letting her understand the problem rather than just accepting his word. Can you repair it? She asked. I can do better than repair it. I can fix the underlying design flaw so this doesn't happen again. Tyler started sketching on his tablet. If I reinforce this section, reroute some of these energy conduits, and add a buffer system to absorb stress, the armor will actually be stronger than it was originally. It'll last another few centuries easy, maybe longer. Captain Torith said something sharp in the dragon language. Viratas responded without taking her eyes off Tyler's sketches. The guard went silent, but his expression suggested he was imagining creative ways to dispose of the human mechanic. My captain wishes to know what gives a human grease worker the audacity to claim he can improve upon dragon smithcraft, Viratas translated. Tyler looked up at the towering warrior. No audacity involved. Just different engineering approaches. Dragon smiths are clearly masters of metallurgy and energy matrices. But humans have been working with stress mechanics and failure analysis for generations. We break things a lot, so we got pretty good at understanding why things break and how to prevent it. Combine dragon materials with human engineering principles, and you get something better than either could do alone. He turned back to his tablet. Look, I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes here. I'm just a mechanic who fixes things. You brought me a broken piece of equipment, and I'm telling you how to fix it properly. If that's insulting, then I guess I'm insulting, but the armor's still going to fail if somebody doesn't do something about it. The room fell silent. Viratas studied the human, this small creature in grease-stained coveralls who spoke to her with the same casual directness he'd probably use with anyone else. No fear. No political maneuvering. No attempts to curry favor or avoid blame. Just honest assessment and practical solutions. It was the most refreshing conversation she'd had in a century. You said it would take days to complete the repair, she said. Yeah, probably 3 or 4. I need to carefully disassemble the damaged sections, fabricate some reinforcement components, and then reassemble everything. Can't rush this kind of work. You will remain here as my guest. My guards will provide anything you require. Tyler shrugged. Sure, beats working on coolant systems. Fair warning though, I'm going to need to ask you a lot of questions about how the armor functions. Energy matrices aren't really my specialty, so I'll need to understand how they interact with the structural repairs. You would dare to question a queen? I mean, yeah? How else am I supposed to learn how this stuff works? Tyler looked genuinely confused. You want me to just guess and hope I don't accidentally blow something up? Viratas felt that strange sensation again, the one she'd almost forgotten existed. Amusement. This human treated her like a technical consultant rather than a legendary conqueror. He saw her armor as an engineering challenge, not a priceless relic too sacred to touch. And his complete lack of fear wasn't arrogance or stupidity. It was simply that he was more interested in fixing the problem than worrying about political consequences. Very well, she said. Ask your questions. And human mechanic, what is your name? Tyler Hayes, Your Majesty. Just Tyler is fine though. Then proceed, just Tyler. Show me what human engineering can accomplish. For the first time in 300 years, Queen Viratas found herself genuinely curious about what would happen next. This human was either brilliant or insane. Possibly both. And she was going to find out which. Tyler started working at first light, which on Crossroad 7 meant the artificial dawn cycle kicked the station lighting to full brightness. He'd set up a proper workspace overnight, with magnification equipment, precision tools, and several diagnostic screens showing real-time data from the armor. The guards had watched him suspiciously through the entire setup, but Tyler had just offered them coffee from his thermos and kept working. The first day was all about careful disassembly. Tyler worked with the kind of focused patience that came from years of fixing delicate equipment where one wrong move could cause catastrophic failure. He used specialized tools to remove each component of the damaged chest plate, photographing every step and making detailed notes. Viratas watched from her chair, fascinated despite herself. Why do you document everything? She asked. Because if something goes wrong, I need to know exactly what I did so I can backtrack, Tyler said without looking up. Also, if this works, other people might want to know how to do similar repairs. No point keeping knowledge to yourself when sharing it helps everyone. That concept seemed to genuinely surprise her. In the Dragon Empire, knowledge was power, and power was hoarded jealously. Master smiths took their techniques to the grave rather than risk creating competition. But this human spoke about sharing expertise like it was the most natural thing in the world. Tyler removed the outer plate and exposed the underlying support structure. The damage was worse than the scans had shown. Hairline fractures ran through multiple support beams, and the energy conduits were corroded in places where they connected to the metal framework. He let out a low whistle. Yeah, this is bad. You're really lucky this didn't fail catastrophically. He pointed to one of the support beams. See this discoloration? That's stress corrosion. The energy flow through the conduits was reacting with the metal over time. Another design flaw nobody caught because they weren't thinking about centuries of continuous use. He spent the next several hours carefully removing the damaged components, explaining each step as he went. Viratas found herself asking questions, genuinely interested in the technical details. Tyler answered each one simply and clearly, never talking down to her but never assuming she understood human engineering principles either. In human metallurgy, we learned a long time ago that different metals expand at different rates when they heat up, he said while examining a connected joint. If you bond them together without accounting for that, the stress will eventually tear them apart. Your armor uses at least 3 different types of metal, all with different expansion coefficients. Over time, that thermal stress accumulates. Dragon smiths are aware of such properties, Viratas said, a bit defensively. I'm sure they are. But knowing about a problem and designing around it are 2 different things. This armor was probably made for warriors who'd wear it into battle and then take it off. Short-term use where thermal stress doesn't have time to accumulate. You're an edge case they never planned for. On the second day, Tyler started fabricating replacement components. He'd found a machine shop on the station that could work with high-grade alloys, though nothing quite matched the dragon-forged metal. Instead, he got creative. He used human aerospace materials for the support reinforcements, designing them to flex slightly under stress rather than remaining rigid. It's not about making everything stronger, he explained while programming the fabrication unit. It's about making it smarter. These reinforcements will absorb and distribute stress across a wider area. Think of it like the difference between a solid wall and a suspension bridge. The bridge flexes with the wind instead of fighting it, so it can handle way more force. Viratas watched the fabrication process with intense interest. The human approach was so different from dragon methodology. Dragon smiths would have reforged the entire section from scratch, creating something monolithic and powerful. Tyler was building a system of interconnected components that worked together, each piece doing a specific job. By the 3rd day, they'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Tyler would work for a few hours, then take a break to eat whatever strange human food he'd brought with him. He tried to share his lunch with Viratas, which her guards found absolutely horrifying, but she accepted out of curiosity. The sandwich was messy and unsophisticated, but oddly satisfying. During these breaks, Tyler would tell stories about his work across various stations. He talked about fixing a life support system on a colony ship with nothing but spare parts and determination. About keeping a 50-year-old mining rig running through creative repairs because the miners couldn't afford replacements. About the satisfaction of taking something broken and making it work again. Don't you want glory? Viratas asked during one of these conversations. Recognition? Power? Tyler looked genuinely puzzled. For fixing things? I mean, it's nice when people appreciate good work, but that's not why I do it. I do it because things need fixing and I know how to fix them. What's the point of having skills if you don't use them to help? It was such a simple philosophy, but it struck Viratas as profound. In her empire, every action was calculated for advantage. Every decision weighed against personal gain. The concept of doing excellent work simply because it was the right thing to do was completely foreign to her. On the 4th day, something happened that changed everything. Tyler was installing the new support structure when his scanner picked up something odd. He stopped, frowned, and ran the scan again. Then he went very quiet. Hey, come look at this, he said, his voice carefully neutral. Viratas approached. Tyler pointed to one of the internal support beams he'd removed. Under magnification, there were a series of precise cuts along the metal, barely visible even with enhancement. That's not wear and tear, Tyler said quietly. Someone cut these. Very carefully, very precisely. They weakened this beam just enough that it would eventually fail, but not so much that it would be obvious. This is deliberate sabotage. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Viratas stared at the evidence, her mind racing through implications. Someone in her inner circle, someone with access to her personal chambers, had tried to kill her. Not quickly with a blade, but slowly, patiently, waiting for the armor to fail at the worst possible moment. How long ago? She asked, her voice deadly calm. Tyler examined the cuts carefully. Based on the corrosion patterns around the damage, I'd say somewhere between 5 and 10 years. They were playing a long game. Can you determine what tool made these cuts? Maybe. The pattern suggests something very precise, probably energy-based. Not a common tool. Whoever did this had access to specialized equipment. He looked up at her. You've got enemies in your own court. Close ones. Viratas was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke to Captain Torith in the dragon language, her words sharp and cold. The guard's expression went from shock to fury to grim determination. He bowed and left quickly. What did you tell him? Tyler asked. To begin a very quiet investigation. And to thank you for potentially saving my life. Tyler shrugged uncomfortably. Just doing my job. Spotting when things don't break naturally is part of being a good mechanic. Equipment doesn't lie. When something fails in a way that doesn't match normal wear patterns, there's usually a reason. He went back to work, installing the reinforced supports with even greater care now. The sabotage had made the repair more complicated, but Tyler approached it with the same methodical patience. By evening, he'd completed the structural reinforcement and started reconnecting the energy conduits. Tomorrow I'll finish the assembly and run full system tests, he said, packing up his tools. Should be good to go by afternoon. Viratas looked at the partially reassembled armor. It already looked different, with the human-designed reinforcements visible beneath the dragon-forged outer plating. Two different engineering philosophies working together, each compensating for the other's weaknesses. You have my gratitude, Tyler Hayes. You have done more than repair my armor. You have potentially saved my life and exposed a threat I did not know existed. Tyler smiled tiredly. Well, that's a bit more exciting than fixing coolant systems. But honestly, I'm just glad I could help. Now let's make sure this thing works right before you try wearing it into battle or anything crazy like that. The fifth day started differently. Tyler arrived at the royal suite to find Viratas already awake, staring out the viewport at the stars beyond. She looked tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. The weight of betrayal sat heavy on her shoulders. Couldn't sleep? Tyler asked, setting down his tool bag. I have been reviewing the past decade in my mind. Trying to determine who had both access and motive. The list is disturbingly long. She turned to face him. When you rule through fear and conquest, you create many enemies. I simply never imagined one would be patient enough to wait years for their revenge. Tyler started his final checks on the armor, running diagnostics on every system. For what it's worth, knowing someone wants you dead is better than not knowing. At least now you can do something about it. Your people do not have such problems? Betrayal? Political assassination? Oh, we definitely do. Humans can be pretty terrible to each other sometimes. Tyler connected a power source to test the energy conduits. But we also figured out a long time ago that building things together works better than tearing each other down. Doesn't always work out that way, but we keep trying. He spent the next 3 hours on final assembly, carefully installing each component and testing it before moving to the next. The armor was coming together beautifully, the human reinforcements integrated seamlessly with the dragon-forged plating. But Tyler kept adding little modifications that hadn't been part of the original repair plan. What are you doing now? Viratas asked, watching him install a small component near the shoulder joint. Shock absorbers. These will take impact force and distribute it across the entire armor structure instead of concentrating it at the point of contact. Should make the armor more comfortable and reduce long-term stress. He grinned. Also, you'll notice less jarring when you move. Trust me, after a few days you'll wonder how you ever lived without them. I did not authorize this modification. Yeah, but you need it. Can't do half a job. Tyler moved to the next section. I'm also installing a better energy distribution system. The old routing was inefficient, wasting about 15% of the power. This new configuration will run cooler and give you better performance. By midday, he'd added half a dozen unauthorized improvements. A cooling system to regulate temperature. Improved joint articulation for better mobility. Enhanced energy flow management. Small diagnostic sensors that would alert her if anything started failing. Each addition was explained in simple terms, with Tyler treating the ancient royal armor like it was just another piece of equipment that deserved to be running at peak efficiency. You take remarkable liberties, Viratas observed, though her tone wasn't angry. If anything, she seemed impressed. Sorry, it's a habit. I see something that could work better, I fix it. Drive some people crazy. Tyler ran a full system diagnostic. But look at these readings. Energy efficiency is up 20%. Structural integrity is better than new. Mobility should be improved by at least 30%. And with the diagnostic sensors, you'll get early warning if anything starts to fail again. He disconnected the test equipment and stepped back. Okay, moment of truth. Want to try it on? Viratas approached the armor slowly. Her guards helped her don it, piece by piece, the way they had thousands of times before. But this time was different. The moment the final connection locked into place, her eyes widened. She took a step. Then another. No clicking. No grinding. No pain shooting through her old wound. The armor moved with her like a second skin, responding to every motion with perfect fluidity. She raised her arms, flexed her shoulders, went through a series of combat stances. Everything felt smooth, natural, effortless. "This is impossible," she whispered. "It's just good engineering," Tyler said, checking his diagnostic tablet. "All systems reading perfect. Energy flow optimal. No stress points anywhere. How does it feel?" Viratas moved again, marveling at the sensation. For the first time in 50 years, she wasn't fighting against the armor. It worked with her, supporting her, enhancing her movements instead of restricting them. She felt strong. She felt young. She felt like the warrior she'd been 3 centuries ago. "I had forgotten what it was like to move without pain," she said quietly. "For half a century, every step reminded me of mortality. Every motion carried discomfort I had learned to ignore. And now?" She performed a spinning strike, the kind of movement she hadn't attempted in decades. The armor flowed perfectly, the enhanced mobility allowing techniques she'd thought lost to time. Captain Torith and the other guards stared in amazement. Viratas stopped and looked at Tyler. Really looked at him. This unremarkable human in grease-stained coveralls, who'd walked into her life 5 days ago and changed everything. He'd fixed her armor, yes, but he'd done so much more than that. He'd shown her that problems could be solved through knowledge and effort rather than force. That improvement was possible through cooperation. That excellence came from caring about the work itself, not from seeking reward or avoiding punishment. "Why did you do all of this?" she asked. "I paid you only for basic repairs. You could have done the minimum and left. Instead, you spent days improving something I did not ask you to improve. You added features I did not request. You made this armor better than it has been in a century. Why?" Tyler looked genuinely confused by the question. "Because that's what mechanics do. When you fix something, you fix it right. You don't just patch the immediate problem and walk away. You look at the whole system, figure out what else might fail, and address those issues too. Otherwise, you're just setting up the next breakdown. But there is no profit in such thinking. No advantage." "Sure there is. The advantage is that the thing works properly. That's the whole point." He packed up his tools. "Look, I know it might seem weird, but for me, the satisfaction comes from doing good work. From taking something broken and making it better than it was. From knowing that someone's going to use this equipment and it's going to keep them safe and work reliably because I did my job right." Viratas felt something shift in her understanding. In her empire, motivation came from fear of punishment or hope of reward. Loyalty was bought or enforced. Excellence was achieved through competition and the threat of replacement. But this human operated on completely different principles. He pursued excellence because it was the right thing to do. He added improvements because he could, not because he'd be rewarded for it. He cared about the quality of his work for its own sake. It was the most alien concept she'd ever encountered. And the most compelling. "What if I told you that your approach, this human way of thinking, could revolutionize my empire?" she asked slowly. "That combining your engineering principles with our resources could change everything?" Tyler shrugged. "Then I'd say that sounds pretty cool. But I'm just one mechanic. Not exactly empire-changing material. You underestimate what you represent." Viratas moved to the viewport, feeling the armor respond perfectly to every motion. "For 3 centuries, I have built an empire on conquest and fear. We take what we want, destroy what opposes us, and rule through strength. It has made us powerful. It has also made us stagnant." She turned back to him. "You have shown me something my entire civilization has forgotten. The value of building instead of taking. Of improving instead of replacing. Of cooperation instead of domination. These are not dragon concepts. But perhaps they should be." Tyler looked uncomfortable with the weight she was placing on his simple repair work. "I mean, I just fixed some armor. I wouldn't read too much into it." "You fixed more than armor, Tyler Hayes. You have given me a vision of what my empire could become. And I intend to pursue that vision." She smiled, a genuine expression that startled her guards. "Whether you intend to be empire-changing material or not." Tyler packed up his tools and figured that was the end of it. He'd done the job, the armor worked better than ever, and now the scary Dragon Queen would fly off to conquer more planets or whatever it was she did. He'd go back to fixing mining equipment in the lower levels of Crossroad 7, and this would become one of those wild stories he'd tell in bars that nobody would quite believe. He was wrong. 3 weeks later, a Dragon warship appeared at the station again. This time, Tyler was summoned before he even knew they'd arrived. He found himself escorted by very polite but very intimidating guards to a private conference room where Viratas waited, still wearing the armor he'd repaired. It gleamed under the lights, moving with her like liquid metal. "Tyler Hayes," she said. "I have a proposition for you." Tyler set down his tool bag cautiously. "Okay? In the weeks since you repaired my armor, I have been investigating the sabotage you discovered. 3 members of my inner court have been arrested. 2 were working together, planning to seize power after my death. The 3rd was an agent from a rival empire." She paused. "Without your intervention, I would be dead, and my empire would have descended into civil war. Billions would have died in the fighting." "That's intense," Tyler said, not quite sure how to respond to preventing an interstellar war by accident. "I have also been thinking about your approach to problems. Your human engineering philosophy. And I have concluded that my empire needs what you represent." She leaned forward. "I want you to come to my throne world and teach my engineers how humans think about fixing things." Tyler blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "My empire spans 1,000 worlds. We have technology beyond human capability, ships that can glass planets, weapons that defy imagination. But our equipment fails constantly because no one knows how to properly maintain it. We build new rather than repair old. We hoard knowledge rather than share it. We punish failure rather than learning from it." Her golden eyes fixed on him intensely. "You spent 5 days showing me a better way. I want you to show my entire empire." "I'm just a mechanic," Tyler protested. "I fix coolant systems and mining equipment. I don't know anything about teaching or empire-level technology or—" "You know how to solve problems. You know how to look at a system, understand what's failing, and make it better. That skill translates across any technology." Viratas stood. "I am not asking you to become a politician or a warrior. I am asking you to do what you do best. Fix things. And teach others to do the same." Tyler ran a hand through his hair, overwhelmed. "This is crazy. Your people are going to hate having a human tell them how to do their jobs. Some will. Others will recognize the value of what you offer." She smiled slightly. "Besides, you already insulted Dragon Smithcraft and lived. You are either very lucky or very capable. I suspect both." It took another hour of discussion, but eventually Tyler found himself agreeing. Partly because the pay was astronomical. Partly because the challenge intrigued him. But mostly because he couldn't shake the feeling that this was important in a way he didn't fully understand yet. The throne world of the Draconian Empire was called Kraventhos, and it was the most intimidating place Tyler had ever seen. Cities of dark metal and crimson stone stretched beneath volcanic mountains. Ships the size of skyscrapers moved through the skies. Dragons in their natural form flew between towers, their scales glinting in the red sunlight. Everything was built to project power and inspire fear. Tyler felt very small and very human. Viratas set him up in the Royal Engineering Complex with a staff of 12 dragon technicians who looked like they'd rather eat him than learn from him. The first few weeks were rough. The lead engineer, a massive dragon named Kravesh, made it clear he considered human technology primitive and human methodology an insult to his craft. "We have built empires while your species was still discovering fire," Kravesh growled during their first meeting. "What can you possibly teach us?" Tyler didn't back down. "How to keep those empires running. When's the last time one of your warships completed a deployment without major system failures?" Kravesh's silence was answer enough. Tyler started small. He took them to a maintenance bay where a damaged fighter craft sat gathering dust, deemed too expensive to repair. He spent 3 days showing them how to diagnose the real problem versus the obvious symptoms, how to fabricate replacement parts when original components weren't available, how to test repairs thoroughly before declaring the job done. The fighter flew again, better than it had in years. Word spread. Other engineers started showing up to watch the human work. Tyler taught them preventive maintenance concepts, showing how small regular checks prevented massive failures. He introduced diagnostic protocols that caught problems before they became critical. He demonstrated how sharing knowledge between teams made everyone more effective rather than creating competition. The breakthrough came 4 months in. A massive orbital defense platform was failing, its energy core destabilizing. Dragon engineers had declared it a total loss, recommending evacuation and controlled destruction. Tyler looked at the schematics and saw something they'd missed. The core wasn't failing. It was being choked by a coolant system that hadn't been properly maintained in 50 years. He took a team up to the platform and spent 2 weeks crawling through maintenance tunnels that hadn't been opened in decades. They cleaned corrosion, replaced worn components, and redesigned the coolant flow based on human thermal management principles. The platform not only stabilized but ran more efficiently than its original specifications. Kravish found Tyler afterward, covered in hydraulic fluid and exhausted. The dragon engineer stared at him for a long moment, then bowed slightly. "I was wrong about you, human. You have knowledge worth learning." From there, everything changed. Engineers who'd been resistant started asking questions. Tyler found himself teaching classes, writing technical manuals, consulting on projects across the Empire. He brought in other human engineers, forming a team that worked alongside dragon technicians. The two approaches merged, creating something neither species could have achieved alone. Viratas watched it all with satisfaction. Ship reliability increased dramatically. Equipment lasted longer. Costs dropped as repair became prioritized over replacement. But more than the practical improvements, she saw cultural changes. Engineers started collaborating instead of competing. Knowledge sharing became normal. The concept of taking pride in maintaining and improving systems rather than just building new ones took root. A year after Tyler first fixed her armor, Viratas summoned him to the throne room. The massive chamber was filled with nobles and military leaders, all watching the human mechanic with expressions ranging from respect to curiosity to lingering skepticism. "Tyler Hayes," Viratas announced, her voice carrying through the hall. "You came to us as a simple mechanic. You have become the bridge between our peoples. Your methods have revolutionized our engineering, but more importantly, you have taught us that strength comes not just from power, but from the wisdom to maintain and improve what we have built." She gestured, and Captain Torith stepped forward carrying something on a velvet cushion. It was a medal, dragon-forged metal worked into an intricate design that combined dragon and human symbols. "I name you Chief Technical Advisor to the Draconian Empire and honorary member of the Royal Court. Not for conquest or glory, but for teaching us how to build a better future." Tyler accepted the medal, still wearing his grease-stained coveralls because some things never changed. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Though I should mention, there's still about 50 maintenance protocols we haven't implemented yet, and I've got some ideas about your ship launch systems that—" Viratas laughed, a sound that stunned the entire court. "Ever the mechanic. Very well, continue your work. Continue teaching us. Continue fixing things." News of the unlikely alliance spread across the galaxy. Other species watched in amazement as the fearsome Draconian Empire, built on conquest and strength, slowly transformed. Human engineers became common sights on dragon worlds. Joint development projects combined dragon materials science with human problem-solving. Technology improved. Efficiency increased. And slowly, the empire that had taken through force began learning how to build through cooperation. The other species learned something important watching this transformation. Humans weren't remarkable because they were stronger or smarter or more advanced. They were remarkable because they looked at broken things and couldn't help but fix them. Because they shared knowledge freely, believing everyone benefited when information flowed. Because they took pride in maintaining and improving systems rather than just building new ones. And sometimes, the most powerful thing a human could offer wasn't weapons or technology or military might. It was the simple philosophy that things should work properly, that problems existed to be solved, and that excellence was worth pursuing for its own sake. Tyler Hayes never stopped being a mechanic. He just became a mechanic who accidentally changed an empire by doing what he'd always done. Fixing things that were broken and making them better than they were before. Because that's what mechanics do. And in the end, that's what changed everything. Retry.